so when we talk about the 90-90 position for our narrows, typically we're going to work a little bit more on the back leg, right? And the reason that is the back leg is going to be positioned into hip internal rotation, extension, and adduction, okay? Which is a position in which we need to improve oftentimes for narrows as well as gait applications, all right? So this would be the mid-stance of gait, all right? This would be the point at which we overcome gravity and we start to push off, all right? Now, this is a great position to start to reverse that process and train that action, all right? So when we start let's start by just talking about improving hip internal rotation, all right? What I find with narrows oftentimes is that they don't necessarily have a flexibility problem, but what they often do have is a mobility problem in the sense that they can't control what they have, all right? So one of the techniques that's quite effective are just isometrics throughout the range of motion, all right? And so when we're talking about a narrow, isometrics typically have about a 15-degree carryover as we go throughout the range of motion. So I might start my narrow in a very kind of early range of motion here with hip internal rotation, put my hand on her foot, all right, and cue her to push her knee down into the ground and start to build tension in my hand at about 25% effort. So go ahead, Steph, start to push up in my hands. All right, we're going to move to 50%. We're going to move to 75%. We're going to move to 100%, just driving as hard as you can, just holding in this position. And again, I could do this for anywhere from 10 to 20 seconds. What I find early on is that we start with kind of lower level contractions and we build to the point where we can really drive off this hard until, when the person starts to cramp, obviously that's a point of fatigue. Okay, let's rest. Okay, and we're just going to turn your torso a little bit more towards me. Okay, and so we repeat that same process again. So let's start at 25%. Start pushing up into my hands here. Think about driving your knee into the ground as well. All right, let's move to 50%. Let's move to 75%. Push as hard as you can. And one of the things that I notice immediately is how much weaker she is here versus where her torso is turned before. Okay, and that's what you'll often find is by manually doing this, you're going to find that the person simply runs out of tension, relax. And that helps you to know kind of where you start, kind of and where you go after that. Okay, so our initial goal would be to build the ability to isometrically contract throughout the majority of the range of motion, just to give Steph better control and kind of better ability to develop tension. From there, we would canvas that with something like a kinetic stretch. All right, so Steph, I'm going to start you in this position. Shoulders are turned this way, and again, I'm just going to have you start to pull up into my hands. And as you pull up into my hand with your foot, I want you to start to rotate your shoulders towards me. And again, this way, as somebody that's working with Steph, I can start to feel when she runs out of tension. That allows me to know when I stop her kinetic stretch, okay? And so for her, it's going to be about here. Start to rotate towards me again, Steph. Okay, stop. And start to push your foot down in the ground. And we're going to externally rotate out. Okay, now one more time. Let's rotate back in towards me. Good, and let's start to rotate back out, okay? And again, that gives the person a really good idea of kind of where they are and where they need to go. Now let's say we don't have we're giving this as homework or whatever. One of the ways that we could use, one of the tools that we could use is just maybe a heavier book or just something that the person could put on the top of their foot as a sensory reference, okay? So that's a really good tool that I like to use to kind of build this particular quality. All right, now let's talk gait, okay? So let's say we have somebody that has a hard time overcoming gravity. Okay, somebody that might be stuck in excessive pronation, somebody that just has a hard time pushing off. All right, which is what we often see with our narrows. All right, what I find in this position is overcoming isometrics are a great way to start to help to push out of that position. And so as we build control and we build further into this position, we can start to utilize overcoming isometrics in much the same manner as we did our isometrics throughout the range of motion. But what I like to do is I'll use both Steph's foot, tongue-tied here, as well as her trunk. Okay, so I'm going to get her into a position where just right at about the position in which she struggles. All right, and then we're going to do an overcoming iso, in which Steph, I'm going to try to push your foot into the ground. I'm going to try to push your foot into the ground, and I want you to not let me do that. I'm going to try to rotate you back this way, and you're going to try to overcome me by going that way. Okay, so we're cueing the overcoming phase of gait while I'm kind of the immovable object. I'm trying to move her back this way, all right? So when I say push as hard as you can, I want you to just try to destroy me, okay? And we'll see how this goes, all right? And we're just going to hold this for about 10 seconds. And again, as we go along, the goal would be to hold for longer. Okay, and again, as we rotate further throughout the range of motion, you can use this same idea. So again, let's start to rotate into my hand with your shoulders. So go this way and start to push your foot up into my hand. And just push as hard as you can. You can also think about driving your down knee into the ground. There you go. And we're just going to hold for about 10 seconds. So crush me here, Steph. We've got 10, 9, 8. Can you feel your hip working there? 7,
Yeah.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. And that's just